Okay, guys, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. My name is Bobby White. I'm the National Performance Manager with England Handball, and I'm delighted to be hosting our ninth webinar in our coach development series. This particular topic is the 4-2 defensive system, and we have got the Great Britain men's national team coach Ricardo Vasconcelos, who's presenting for us today. Just a couple of housekeeping bits. If you can keep your microphones on mute throughout the session, it'd be great. Ricardo's essentially making a presentation, so it wouldn't be ideal to interrupt. But if you do have questions, please feel free to put them into the chat box, and I'll be filtering them and asking them at the appropriate times. The session is being recorded, and it will be sent out and shared as all recordings have been up to this point. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Ricardo, I'm going to pass over to you now, mate, if you want to make a quick introduction of yourself.
There's not a lot to say. First of all, thanks for coming. It's a real pleasure to be here learning with and from you as well. Hopefully we'll have a good hour or so of interaction and discussion. I would like this to be a bit of a two-way road, although we are adopting the chat option in terms of posing questions. So if there's anything at any moment that you would like to explore further, probably we'll be taking a look at it. In terms of me personally, as Bobby said, I'm currently coaching the Great Britain men's. I'm from Portugal, where I've played in Pinadorno, one of the prettiest places you'll ever see in the world, but I'm biased. So don't take it from me, go and visit. Also played in Sporting Lisbon, and you know, life events brought me here, and I'm now taking the opportunity as much as I can to grow, develop, and explore the world of handball. Bobby, I don't know if you want to, you know, throw the poll out so that they can start answering a couple of questions before.
Cool. Yeah. So guys, we've just going to launch a poll now, which is going to ask you which your preferred defensive systems are and what your secondary option for defensive systems are. So if you can just complete the poll for us, that might form a nice basis of discussion for Ricardo. I can see you guys cracking on with that as we speak. So thanks. Just keep on tapping away as we go. Ricardo, back to you.
Yeah. Whilst you're replying, just explaining a bit the situation. Bobby, are you okay? Am I okay to share my screen without impacting on the poll?
Yeah, go ahead, mate.
Okay, so I'm gonna just trying to share my screen whilst we're at it. Can you see it? Well,
I can see it, mate. Yeah.
Perfect. So we have, well, almost everyone has replied. Let's give them around about 30 seconds more.
Yeah. 3, 2, 1's in the lead at the moment with 20 votes.
Yeah.
Preferred. I like it.
Oh,
Still catching up.
There's a few 4-2s as well, which is quite interesting.
There is.
So I'm guessing I'm going to be challenged by the experts of the 4-2 today, hopefully. Okay, I think we can close it. There's still 8 people who didn't answer, but
okay.
7.
So do you want me to stop the poll?
Yeah, just stop it.
Okay.
Okay, so I can see here, guys, in your replies that your primarily preferred defensive system is the 6-0, the narrow advantage with 3-2-1, and then the 5-1. Bobby, are they having access to the results? Guys, can you see the results on your screens? No. Okay. So 6-0 is the preferred one. So you can see it now, yeah?
Yeah, I'm sharing it now. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. And then your secondary option is 5-1. I was just trying to understand how many people here was using any level of 4-2. We have 7 answers in total, which is probably 7 more than I was hoping, or that I was expecting, not hoping. which is good. Okay, guys, looking at the results would prompt you to ask a question, and the question would be, why am I talking about the 4-2 defensive system when, if I had the chance to reply to your poll, I wouldn't choose the 4-2, definitely not as my first option, probably as a second option. This is a bit of a self-inflicted challenge that I've done on myself. And the challenge was done just because, obviously, when myself and Bobby were planning this webinar series, we wanted to approach all the systems. We've invited several coaches which we thought would be ideal for some systems. And whilst I was thinking about what system would be a biggest challenge for me to develop as coach, whilst I was enjoying preparing something for you, 4-2 seemed like an obvious choice. I wouldn't sell myself as expert on 4-2, but what I can tell you is, after this small pathway of trying to prepare something useful and meaningful to you, I've become a fan, and my level of knowledge of the system has increased, and I'm hoping that this is just the beginning, and that will allow me and guide me further into exploring it and using it on my daily sessions. In terms of the session outline and what we're going to talk about, we're just going to introduce the system initially, the different models, very brief historical overview, the different models inside the same system, and then a proposal. As you know, all the systems can have several different models depending on how and who and where you're using it. All the systems will give you and take something away. All the systems will have flaws. You will see gaps. You will see opportunities to explore failures or fails in that system. But it's just a proposal. And as Danilo, in his brilliant 5-1 presentation, said last week, it's up to us as a coach to, looking at our players, select a system and adapt a model that will allow us to work those vulnerabilities as much as possible and to dilute them as much as possible on a day-to-day basis. Then we're going to the why. Why do I think 4-2 system is a good option, very briefly. And then I wouldn't want to just go away with exploring a system and finish the presentation. So I would try and finish with a bit of a personal take on how I work several defensive systems, the ones I propose myself to work, not just the 4-2, and some of the tools I use or I've been using lately to try and develop not only my off and on court work, but also my coach behaviors and my ability to impact the players I'm coaching. So I'm just okay. So origins and context, a bit of a historical approach to the system. First appearance in Czechoslovakia during the 60s. I'm sure a few of you will remember, or at least will have seen a few videos on YouTube of the 4-2 system, if you ever explored, by France, using it in the '92 Olympic Games in Barcelona. Some very interesting clips there if you want to further explore the system after the presentation. And in principle, it's a zonal system designed to provide symmetrical in-depth. The system has different models, and all those models are characterized inherently by the behaviors that you ask from your 2-point defenders, your 2 advanced defenders. Those models are total mixed, what you usually call a 4+2 system, where the 2-point defenders are individually marking 2 attacking players. Partially mixed system, where one of the point defenders is marking individually a player, the other one is doing his zonal defense as usual. And the floating system, which is the basis of this defense, which is the classic model where the 2 forward or point defenders adjust their zones in relation to the position of the ball, so they're not individually marking any of the players. My proposal today is going to focus on the floating model, so the basis for the system, This is to inform myself. I've tried to look for a lot of documents and videos and studies made around the 4-2. There's a few out there if you wanna look for it, and I can send you the bibliography that informed this presentation at the end as well. But one of the teams that has been using more consistently the 4-2 defensive system at a high level. There's a few in Azabal, but the team that I've focused my research on was Helvetia and Aitasuna from Spain. Their coach is a very in-depth explorer of the 4-2 system. He has a few resources published around it, and he uses it on a competitive basis quite regularly. So I've tried to dab on his knowledge a bit to inform this. So in terms of this model, the floating model, there are individual technical demands and concepts that we have to take into account, and those are, I suspect, quite similar to any other open defensive systems that we might work in. So high mobility in connection to spatial awareness. Players need to be aware of the space, need to be aware of how to position their body, and able to cover the kill zone, the central areas, which is the main area we're trying to protect with this system. We need to have good decision makers, able to anticipate passes, movement, to apply the anticipatory skills of interception and dissuasion, try to channel the game to the wider areas, which is what we want in the system, and obviously have highly developed and evolved players on their individual defensive technique on wide 1v1 situations, mainly when we are looking to the 2 forward defenders and 2-point defenders, because they're going to be exposed a lot on 1v1 situations when facing the backcourt players. The same prospect when focusing on the basic tactical concepts that the system entails, and this is obviously, those are specific to the floating model, that the one that I'm using in this presentation. So what we want is to create similarity to the 3-2-1 defensive system. What we want is to create superiority on the side of the ball. We want to offer the wider areas, so we want to promote shooting from wider areas, from the sides of the court where the angle is smaller, giving the goalkeepers hopefully a better chance to increase their efficacy in goal. We want to force quick decisions, force dribbling and risky passes, long passes, where our chances of intercepting are bigger, and the chances of the attacking players making mistakes are bigger as well. And that's where the anticipatory skills of our defenders are key, in their movements to dissuade, in their movements to create doubt in the attacking players and to break the flow of the ball. We obviously want to prevent back-to-back passes, because our defense is going to be balanced, creating superiority to the side of the ball. That means, as it is on the 3-2-1, a back-to-back pass would straight away catches unbalanced. And if the attackers are good decision makers, they would straight away take advantage of that to score. And the key aspect, mainly for the point defenders, is how they relate when the opponents switch. So we might try to promote complex or semi-complex situations where the back cross or the playmaker cross with another back. It's key that we understand that in this model, our point defenders need to respect the zones. So if you want a visual image of that, if you have an imaginary line going across the center of the court, you would ask your point defenders not to cross it to the other zone. Essentially, you'd ask them to respect their zones. The same situation isn't valid for the center backs, because obviously, because they're trying to create superiority on the side of the ball, we need to allow them to cross that imaginary line, although the principle of not switching is the same. So they can cross zones, but they shouldn't switch with their teammates. They should switch the attacking player. Is that making sense to everyone? Any questions at the moment, Bob?
No questions in the chat so far, mate. Carry on.
Cool, cool. In terms of basic tactical concepts per position, very brief. The point defenders, the 2 players we choose to be ahead of this defense, Their key roles are to offer the wider areas and protect the kill zone. And by kill zone, we mean the center of the court. So we want to keep the attacking players as close as possible to the sideline. Disturb and dissuade the flow of the ball, as I mentioned before, forcing quick and risky decisions. We'll see some clips and cuts I've made from the games from Helvetia in the EHF competitions, where you're going to be able to see this practically. Zonal marking, as I've said, so switch the opponent, not the zone. And in terms of the playmaker, and this is a key aspect, it's a key change that occurred from, say, the 60s when this system first showed up to now, is the responsibility of the playmaker. So how do the 2-point defenders react with the playmaker? And the rules that this system defends, or this model defends, not the system, the model, are basic. So first of all, we need to take into account what we consider the strong trajectory of the playmaker. So usually, if the playmaker is right-hander, we might consider the strong trajectory our left side if we're facing him as a defender. Yeah, he would want to go to the middle, he would want to go to the left. If the playmaker attacks almost in a straight line, the advanced defender that is responsible for the line is the defender on the side of that strong trajectory. Okay, that's the basic rule. So if I have a right-hander playmaker and he decides to move in his zone to attack forward without committing to one of the zones with clarity, then the first action to stop the playmaker should come from the point defender on the left side, the one who should be responsible as well from the right back. Is that clear? Yeah. If he decides to attack one of the zones to try and fix one of the defenders, then it's obviously a zonal defense. So whichever defense is in that zone is the responsible. So that's a key aspect of the behavior of the 2-point defenders in a situation that could cause a bit of confusion, which is when the playmaker attacks forward. What do they do? So the rule that this model advocates is inherently connected with what we define as the strongest trajectory of the playmaker. Okay, and this is obviously usually connected to his shooting arm, as you well know. In terms of the center-back defenders, the main role of the center-back defenders is to create superiority on the side of the ball. So we will always want to have a center-back defender between the ball and the goal, as well as the point defender. So we would have almost a 2v1 situation there. Obviously, there are the responsibilities to cover the line player, because the points usually don't drop back 6 meters, don't flatten back. That means that there's a shared responsibility for the line player between the 2 center backs and the 2 number 1s. And then obviously help when the points are late. So when we couldn't dissuade or impact the flow of game as much as to allow our point defenders to adjust, then the first person to help and to cover will be the center back. Hence why he's creating the superiority. Quite similar to 3-1 in some aspects as well. The wing defenders, it depends on where the ball is usually. So the wing defender on the opposite side of the ball is, because we are creating a superiority on the side of the ball, that means someone somewhere on court will have 2 attackers to cover, and that's the opposite wing. The opposite wing will have to become deeper, assume a position where it's trying to dissuade the back-to-back pass, and also being prepared to intercept if they try to do that pass and delay what could be a change of side. If he's on the side of the ball, it depends on when the ball is. If the ball is on the back of his side, he will want to put pressure on the wing so that the back can't do that pass and has to dribble, which is a key aspect of this defense, is to force the dribble, force the trigger, so that we can then make the attacker do risky passes and take decisions that he wouldn't take if he had the time to think. And if the ball is on his own player, he's obviously having a very similar role to the point defender on that side, which is keeping the game as close to the sideline as possible, forcing him to go outside. So I'm going to show a few videos that will unpick what I've just said. Hopefully you'll be able to see the videos as well as I can. I'm aware that they might have some framing issues due to the Wi-Fi, but we will send this presentation, and the recording will be made available soon, so you'll be able to catch up if the videos aren't great. But Bobby, if you could keep me posted about the quality of the videos, that would be helpful.
No problem.
So just the system mechanics, how they move with the ball. So here is the situation. I've just paused it. Here is the situation I was talking to you about. When the playmaker has the ball, both point defenders come down a bit, if that makes sense, and none of them is straight away responsible for him. Obviously, in this case, is a right-hander, so if he decides to attack forward, the initial responsibility of the playmaker would be from this defender, because this would be the strong trajectory. If he decides to go either way, then if he decides to move this way, this is the defender. If he decides to go that way, this is the defender. Is that making sense at the moment? Let me just carry on. So again, trying to force the wide harriers. You can see the behavior here, trying to take the pass away, and again, same situation. Okay, so we would end up with a 3v2 situation on the side of the ball, a 1v1 plus 1v1 in the center, and then here it is, the 2v1 situation we want to see outside, where he's trying to dissuade the back-to-back pass that would, obviously create a superiority situation straight away if we allow it to go too fast, because both points and center backs wouldn't be able to come here in time. The ball always travels faster than the player. So the only way we'll be effective in creating the superiority situation here is if we kill the ball, or at least delay the flow of the ball. Okay? So a bit of a video. Bobby, how was the video?
It's fine, mate.
Okay, cool. So here's an example. They were playing EHF against Fush Berlin. This is just one video to try and show you the behavior in practice of the defenders. Is the video good, Bobby?
Yeah, usual framing issues, but it's pretty good.
I'm not discussing refereeing here, guys, by the way. So don't ask, I won't tell. So here's one of the examples of them trying to force long passes, risky passes that will make them win possession. Guys, I'm sorry, I'm not sure if you were able to see the video the way I wanted you to see, but hopefully you got the point that I was trying to make. This is done. So that's the simple mechanics of the system. Now, obviously, we move to adaptations and reaction to offensive system changes. And by that, I mean simple or complex transformations in the attack. So what happens if the wing goes to second? What happens if the playmaker or backcourt player goes to second? How do we behave? What adaptations do we see in the defensive systems when we are talking about the floating model? I emphasize this floating model because you guys might decide to work 4-2 and apply completely different rules. And those are your rules. That's your model. Okay, this is my model, or the model I've studied. So don't take it as the 100% only option, because it varies and it depends on many constraints, mainly the opposition and the characteristics of our players as well. Okay, so when there's a wing transformation to second pivot, this will create a question about the 2v1 situation outside. Remember what we've said, the behavior of the number one defender was to prevent the long passage. Here, wing without ball, he's still trying to create a 2v1 situation. The difference is he's not creating it with his wing, but he's trying to dissuade the long pass, the back-to-back pass, and at the same time trying to prevent this direct pass, giving this center back the time he needs to come to this side and create superiority. Can you guys see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So let's try and move to with ball. So usually when teams are attacking the 4-2, and this is what I've seen on the video, and they want the wing to go second, they want a wing transformation with ball, the wing will come outside to try and create some confusion on the point defenders instead of just picking up the ball and trying to go behind them. The end product is exactly the same for the defense. Okay, it's how we react here when the wing has the ball that changes, nothing else changes. Okay, so I'm going to show you some videos to try and unpick this on a practical way. We've got 3 examples. If at any moment you want me to stop a video and ask any questions, just there's a button to raise your hand, or you can write something on the chat. So first example. So I'm going to play it again so that you have the chance to observe it better. So in this situation, you can see this defender here is the defender of the wing that just went in. So he's going to try and apply pressure. He's going to leave, in this context, this center back in the 1v1 situation as well with the line player, because we're going to try and create the superiority on this side because that's where the ball is moving. Okay? Plus, the player with ball, it's not even looking at this side. So everyone is orientated towards the ball. And that's how the behavior of the defenders is dictated as well. Again, same situation, 2v1 here. This center back is a bit more centered to try and create the superiority. Now the wing goes in, and as I've showed you on the drawing, we have a 2v1 situation here. He, although he's closer to the line that we will see in a few other examples up ahead, his orientation is to this player and this side to try and create the superiority. Are you guys following? Yeah, all good? Perfect. Let me just let it get to the end.
Ricardo, there's a question into the group, and I guess it means what if the line player slides behind the defender, the first defender?
Towards the middle.
Well, I'm not sure, because the question is if the line player slides behind the first defender. So, Elena, if you want to clarify what your question is into the chat.
Is it towards the middle or towards the wing? So it's a simple question. If you could reply, then I could go with it, because there's not a lot changes there. Because if he slides towards the wing, then he becomes a wing.
Yeah.
And he creates the same 2v1 situation. If it slides towards the middle, then the center back will follow. And we will have the same numerical superiority here. The only difference is there's a 1v1 on this side as well. I don't know if it answered your question, Elena, but if it didn't, just let me know and I'll try and make myself a bit clearer.
She said thank you, so you can just carry on, mate.
Perfect. Okay, I believe this is the next one. Yeah, this is the next one. So from the opposite side, same sort of behavior. Okay, I'm going to, as I've done before, I'm going to bring it back. So same sort of behavior from the 2-point defenders. They're not exposing too much, not over-committing, because that would give a simple pass and a simple option. Now in this situation, you can see here the position of the wing, the opposite wing from the side of the ball, creating that 2v1 we were advocating at the start. This player is a bit more central than the one we were showing before, although he's a bit flat-footed for what we would like. Okay, so what we saw here was an approach from the pivot is trying to move towards the middle to create some confusion on him, on the number 1 defender. This is all covered by the position of the point on the side of the ball, but he only feels the necessity to do this because this player is overly flat. So if you look at both his feet, he's almost in line when he should actually be positioning his body to try and hide the pivot from this player. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he should be facing the player with ball, in essence, in this stage. Okay, here there's a pass. I'll just let you see the outcome. So there was a switch. I don't know if you remember what I said at the start. If the player switch, you don't. You stick to your zone, just here. Okay, let's get to the final video or final example of the wing transformation. And this is one where the attack is actually going to be successful. Bit of luck on the way. And again, two key aspects here from my perspective, and all of this is my view. Okay, here, this defender came too close and took too long to pass the line player. That meant he wasn't, again, hiding the situation. And this defender is in no man's land currently. Remember when I said we need to have good decision makers to be able to react and adapt to whatever is thrown at them? He's probably a great decision maker. I'm not saying, I'm not here to talk about the players, but in this specific situation, he stayed in no man's land. That meant this guy didn't know what to do. He didn't know if he should step back. He didn't know if he was in the right position. So what happens here is there's a pass. This guy was late to the pass. Okay, the attackers were a bit lucky, but he's still in no man's land. And there's a goal. Okay. Any questions around system transformation when the wing?
Ricardo, there's no questions on that, but there is one question. I'm not sure if you'll cover it later, but it's about any adaptations for when teams play 7v6.
No, I won't cover it later, simply because I've never seen a team defending 4-2 against the 7v6. I'm guessing there will be in future, and if you have, guys, please let me know where. I would love to be able to take a look at that. I've seen 5-1. I've seen some teams going wild and crazy and doing effectively a 3-2-1 against the 7v6. But I honestly haven't seen the 4-2. So if you have, I would love to be able to explore that a bit further.
Tiago says apparently Kiel tried it against Porto. Maybe we can find it.
There you go, and I should have seen that, Tiago. Obrigado. I should have seen that, so I'm gonna take a look further into that. Guys, if you wanna better understand how the 4-2 system works against 7v6, Kiel used it against Porto, and Tiago will hopefully share the link in the chat whilst we are speaking about it. If not, no problem. We'll look for it, Tiago. Okay, guys, if there's no more questions, and again, Tiago, keep them coming. We'll move to the next bit of transformation, which is back and playmaker transformations, second line, and how the defense reacts and adapts to it. I'm going to use the same model as I've done before. So, sorry. Okay, I can carry on now. So we have the backcourt player first. Let me start again. Sorry. Someone's desperately trying to invade my house. Not going to allow that. And this is the playmaker situation. So the behavior is very, very similar to other defensive systems in terms of how the points react. Because the playmaker or the back flow inside and transform inside the defense, that means it's going to create almost an easy decision for both point defenders, where they have one of them will have one player in their zones. The only situation that might change is because we're trying to create a 2v1 here. that will allow our point defender on the opposite side of the ball to be a bit more central, to give a bit more support on this side as well, allowing for the centre back to be closer to the player that wins. Is that making sense, or am I speaking too fast, Bobby?
As far as I'm aware, mate, it's all good. I can follow you.
Okay. If you can, everyone can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so essentially, we're gonna see it on video anyway. Let's crack on with it. So here. Okay. Okay, the playmaker went to backcourt player, so the backcourt player is moving to second. The behavior of the 2 point defenders is the one I've explained earlier. Instead of facing this player and creating a simple 1v1 situation on either side, he stayed in the middle, tried to prevent the pass as much as possible. But the main reason is to allow for this centre back to control the movement of the player that went second. Okay? If he overcommitted to this side, then we wouldn't be able to have a superiority on the side of the ball, which is the basis of this defensive system. Because if the centre back follows the second line, and if the point defender opposite of the ball follows the backcourt player, then we would end up with a 3v3 situation here. And remember, we always want superiority on the side of the ball in this system. Okay? Again, while talking about refereeing, I'm going to move to the next one before you guys decide to start writing. Next example, Playmaker. This is a good example of dissuasion and keeping the game on the wide side. So the player dribbled. There's a key moment here where the player with ball. So Philippe Motta forces the player to turn his back towards the goal, and because of that, he has to use a dribble. There's no other options. And as soon as he dribbles the ball, observe the behavior of this defense. Okay? So everyone is trying to take options out of him, force him to do something risky, try and intercept possession without providing opportunity to shoot. Okay? Just breaking the attack, breaking the flow, trying to bring them to passive game as much as possible. Good?
Yep.
Letting it go to the end. Oh, sorry, it's another one. The last one. There's a lot of switches here. I'm going to play this by parts because there's a lot of switches and crosses. And Philippe here was a bit late in the first tackle, so we had to adapt and adjust. But he didn't overcompensate in any moment, which is a trait of a good decision maker. He was observing the game and adapting because he understands the system. And this is a key aspect that we'll explore a bit further down the line. But the fact that you understand the system allows you to adapt if anything goes wrong without disrupting what everyone else is doing. And the behavior he opted for in this situation. So, do it again. My bad. So here, he managed to go in. Here there's a different behavior from the defender, the second point defender. He's just trying to delay the movement of the playmaker going second, allowing for the superiority to be on this side because the line is here. Because he's delaying his movement, that means this centre back can be here creating superiority. He goes in, the ball moves to that side, the centre back moves with it, but he lost the position of the player. Now he's not going to swap and chase him to the end of the world. He's going to try and regain shape. and force the attacking player to the wider spaces. Because he moved too fast, he is now late. He's slower than the defender, than the attacker, and he's now late. So what he's going to do is he's going to try and adapt again. Obviously, there was a clear pass to the line player here. However, he was with his back towards him, so he couldn't see him. So he passes the player again, and he waits to try and engage in contact. Okay? They just recover possession because they force the ball to move along, to move around, and force the player to stop a line. I'm going to let it go to the end. Okay. In terms of basic system adaptations to offensive transformations, that's what we can explore. That's what we've explored. Obviously, there's plenty more to analyze further down the line if you want to explore the system and use the system. As I've said at the start, it's great to know the vulnerabilities of each system, because that means we can try to dilute them as much as possible. And if something that Danilo said at the start of his presentation was that you will find faults in the defensive system, in the model that I'm presenting. You will find, if you have your offensive coaching brain, you will straight away look at that video and think, oh, maybe you could have done that, or maybe if the line player goes to that side, it will cause a bit of issues. The big secret about informing your decision when selecting a system, and inside the system when selecting a model, will be how confident you are you can predict those vulnerabilities and work with your players to try and dilute them in terms of quantity ratio. It's all about a numbers game. A handball game is never going to finish 0-0. Okay? So we just need to consider what options we've got to try and make them shoot from harder positions, and to give us more chance of tackling, to give us more chance of gaining the ball without committing foul, to give us more chances of forcing them to commit mistakes and bring the game to passive and so on. Why the 4-2? That's my question.
Ricardo, just before you move on to that, the question's just come in, which hasn't been covered, and it's when the line player goes out to screen one of the point defenders.
Okay, good. Let me try and see if I can do this on. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to start sharing another. Yeah, just for a minute. I'm going to use this. Trying to use this. No, not this one. My bad. Yeah. Okay. Can you see what I'm seeing? Probably the diagrams program.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if the line player decides to come out from the defenders in this situation, is that what you're asking? If he comes out to block one of the points, or if he just comes out to receive the ball? What's the scenario?
The question was screen. So if he comes out to block, yeah.
Screen one of the points. So there's two options, and they're very similar to the 3-2-1. So the basic rules of the 3-2-1 basic system, which is the first one is there needs to be communication from the players who are behind. The initial reaction from the player from the defender would be to run away from it, to try and evade
being pinned.
Try and evade being pinned by the line player. Thanks, Bobby.
Okay.
Try and evade being pinned by the line player, and try to stop the game. Try to tackle the player. So basically, run away from it. If that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the second option, if you can't evade, the second option would be to go behind him. Just as usual. as we would do on a normal 2v2 situation on the 6-0. Try to go around him and stay in between him and the ball at all the time, trying to prevent the pass to go in. Okay, so the key aspects here is how early there's a communication from the centre backs to the point defender. The initial reaction, and the one that this model advocates, would be to evade the attempt, and evade the attempt by taking 2 steps forward, trying to tackle the ball, or trying at least to bring the line player even further out, because the furthest the line player is outside of the 6 meters, the easier will be for the defense to adapt, because it will take him longer to go back. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if the line player has the necessity to come out and try to make a screen, and we are 15 meters away from the goal, that will give us 2 or 3 extra seconds to recover and readjust, and all the defense will read that situation. If we are too close to the 9 meters, if we don't try to evade that attempt, then the chances of the 2v2 he's trying to create being more effective are higher. The other aspect we need to understand is we should have superiority on the side of the ball. So even we should have a centre back here and another centre back here. Okay? And remember, our wing defender is gonna be here, try to create a situation where the guy with the ball is gonna be scared of passing. The other point, sorry guys, the other point is gonna be here, trying to, stop the situation from the playmaker. So, and now let me finish. We are here controlling the pass to this player. What we're trying to create here is a situation where even if he blocks me, we have 2 centre backs who can adapt and adjust and come to my aid. Okay, but the initial reaction would always be to try and force the line to come as out as possible. Come here if you want, then you can block me as much as you want, because everyone's going to adapt and adjust. And the second option is to allow enough time for the centre backs to react. I don't know if I've answered your question, but if I didn't, please.
Yeah, Richard said thanks for the response, mate. I think it was quite good, nice detail. There's one more question. I know you were going to go on to the why not bit.
That's fine.
And I guess this is probably an easy one to answer, but Brian's asked, the line players are so strong and big these days. Do you have big issues with 2 against 2 situations and 1v1 situations with the pivot? But I suppose that would be about understanding the strengths of your individuals in your team.
There's one of the strengths, and we're gonna on the why not's gonna touch it. Is one of the benefits of this system, or one of the reasons why we could use this system, is precisely to fight the anthropometrical differences between us and the opposition. Let me just bring them over. So if you look at the second point, the antidote for anthropometric deficits.
Ricardo, you're still sharing the XPS station?
There you go. Give me a second.
All right, mate.
Stop share screen. I'm sorry, guys. Here. You see it now?
It's just coming. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, antidote for anthropometric deficits. It's one of the key reasons why we use this system when we are facing a team, or why we may use this system or any other open defensive system that is as aggressive as this one. Is try to prevent that precise situation where the line is way bigger than any of the players that's trying to tackle him. So you would obviously select your centre backs, having taken that in account, to create some level of equality between the centre backs and the line players. Also, obviously, one of the issues when doing that is usually when you select bigger players and you put them in a wider area, the chances of 1v1 from the backcourt players against them will be bigger, because there's a clearing zone where they can create a 1v1 between a quick left back or playmaker against one of those 2 centre backs. And that's the reason why we're trying to protect the kill zone and offer the outside areas, is trying to force a situation where that doesn't happen. But if it happens, it will happen close to the sideline, because it's easier for any player, but mostly for a heavy player, to cut the middle trajectory if he's closer to the sideline, It just needs to essentially be put a leg forward and take it out with his big amplitude. Is that making sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is proactive versus reactive. I don't believe in reactive defenses nowadays. Although everyone talks about reactive defenses, I don't think they exist anymore. If you look at the current 6-0s, everyone is trying to win the ball, everyone is trying to dissuade, everyone is trying to regain possession and force mistakes. I believe, I'm sure Paul will explore that further on his 6-0. I think he's on our call currently, so I'm guessing he will, from what I've seen from the Portuguese national team in Euro, he will agree with that. There's no reactive defenses anymore. Everyone is trying to be proactive and try to regain possession and force mistakes. So we tend to mention that open defenses are way more proactive, but you know, a 6-0 can be as proactive as any other defense. It depends on the model we decide to use. So I don't really believe in reactive defenses anymore, unless we are lucky enough to have 7 3-meter tall players, and we can build a wall of China around our 6-meter area. Then we can stay as reactive as we want, because no one will score. This will all obviously also get us 2 players closer to the fast break zone. So instead of 1, this will get us 2, and obviously the after-goal restart. But the main key aspect of what I believe I'm going to be using a bit more for than I've done in the past is precisely takes us back to the poll. Almost no one uses it. That means almost no one works antidotes for it. So as a surprise factor, it's great. Maybe I shouldn't have said it now, but but as a surprise factor, could be a good defensive system. The issue with this system, and it's the main issue, is it demands a lot physically from your players. So you would have to have 16 players, well, taking the goalkeepers out of the equation, 14 players on the court that would be able to do this as effectively as the next one if you wanted to do it for a long game. This is usually mostly used when you want to change something, when you want to promote some sort of doubt into the attack. And it was used quite effective by Unitasuna on that game against Fusha Berlin, although they've ended up losing. But until there was a clear adaptation from Fusha, they managed to pull a few goals back, which was very interesting to observe. So those would be, I believe, some of the reasons in the beginning why I would look at 4-2 as a, if not main system, at least an option in my system book. Any questions? Can I move?
There's a question around how you prepare for it, and you've mentioned already the the need for the physical kind of capacity of the team and the metrics. I think you've got to talk a little bit about implementing it in training.
Yeah, I think you prepare for the 4-2 system the same way you prepare for any other system, taking the same steps in the same process. It's a question, what changes is the model, what changes are the rules that you're applying. So the process you take, the process you start when preparing to use a 6-0 or any defensive system will be the same. At least from my point of view, and this is my way, starting with the end in mind, obviously. Focusing on individual technique first, I need to assess the ability of my players to apply the model I want to work with them. And I've said this not too long ago, if I have 14 players who are 150 centimeters or 1.50 meters tall, I'm not going to work a 6-0 with them. If as much as proactive as it could be, I'm not going to use it with them just because it won't work. So always focus on the individual first, assess the players, assess how good they are, assess how good they are, not only decision making, but also their individual defensive technique. And then focus on the tactical work. And again, guys, I can't emphasize enough, this is my model. It's not right, it's not wrong, it's just mine. Okay, it's a work in progress. There's a few things on it that could be, or I'm sure there's a lot that could be argued by coaches who are observing from that side, and I'm open to any kind of feedback to help me grow. So this is how I promote my work when I engage into a tactical defensive system. I've got a funnel. If you can picture a funnel, you will see it starts very open and then starts closing. On the open side, my practice design is designed to promote an understanding of the system. I don't want to go there and tell them, this is the rule, you do it. Because then, when the rule fails, they won't be able to adapt. So I try to co-construct with them. I try to bring them into the discussion, and I try to put them in scenarios where they have to solve the problems on their own. So I try to create drills that will make them feel vulnerable by making mistakes, give them the time to discuss those mistakes, and give them the time to agree in solutions. And this is the biggest part of my funnel, is problem setting. If the funnel starts shrinking or not, it will depend on several factors that I've outlined underneath. The age group is one of the key factors. I tend to leave the funnel as open as possible for as long as possible, or it wouldn't even be a funnel if we're talking about young age groups. It would just be open. Try to let them explore, try to let them understand the system faults, and let them be creative about solving it as much as possible. Guiding a bit their discovery through a few questions, using the moments of silence to let them reflect and think about it. Obviously, the stage, when we're talking about performance and we're talking about senior men's, women's, national teams, where we are a bit more result focused in some part of our season, then the funnel could start to shrink a bit, and we could be a bit more focused on solving the problems and instructing instead of just allowing for that. So if you look at the coach continuum, the coach behavior continuum, you can be a lot of laissez-faire and allow them to explore the system a lot. And then at the other end, you have an autocratic coach that dictates and tells and orders. I'm sure we all float amongst it in our sessions and throughout our seasons. Those are the facts that impact on my moments. The contact time, and I've added this bit because I have the chance to work in a club setup where I'm every week quite regularly with my players, and then I have a national team as well when I'm with them. Well, if I'm lucky, 2 or 3 times a year. That will obviously impact on the way I behave in terms of that co-construction to instruction point. When we were preparing the emerging nations in Georgia, we've defined that we would use 2 defensive systems, which would be 6-0 and 5-1 predominantly, and then we would have the 3-2-1 as a backup, which we never used, by the way, because we never needed. But in terms of the 6-0, I had a pre-session meeting with my centre backs, and I've asked them, after observing several games from several teams in the world, and watching some different patterns on those teams, how do they see themselves behaving? How do they want to behave and why? And this was probably 1 year before, or not 1 year, probably 6 months before the competition. And I had 4 centre-back defenders, and 2 of them agreed with one solution, and 2 of them agreed with the other solution. So amongst them, they didn't agree. So I left that discussion saying, I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you to it. In a few months, we're going to be back together, and I'm going to ask the same question again. And I'm going to keep asking this question until we are close to the competition. And if on our holding camp, which is usually a camp that takes 2 or 3 weeks long, you haven't agreed on something, then I'm going to tell you the solution I want. but I would rather you agreeing, because then you'll understand why you're doing it. So eventually, and very, very close to the end, they didn't agree. So I ended up arriving to my holding camp, and they were still have that fixed ideas of how to behave differently. So we had a meeting, and that's when I switched from problem setting to problem solving, and a bit more instruction, and I told them how I wanted things to be done, mainly taking into account the opposition we were going to face. So there's a practical example. In my toolbox, and when I said this is my way is a working process. I'm always trying to develop and learn. I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by people that challenge me at every corner. Not only my friends in Portugal, but also my friends in England and in the UK. And I would like to do just an add-on here, which the guy who's presenting this with me, it's probably one of the main reasons of my coach behavior change over the last few years. I would like to think I've changed for the best, but if I didn't, at least I can blame it on you. But two tools I use every time I'm planning are those frameworks. I don't know if you've come across them. One of them to define the goals in the system, and the other one to reflect, to prepare and reflect on the sessions I've just delivered. I would like to leave you here with those two, because I know I'm over time. If you want to explore them, I think you should probably take them away with you, have a play around and see if it works for you. If it doesn't, hey, at least you've tried. But it's a bit of an insight of how I think and how I try to develop my coaching. I know Bobby is a hardline expert on those frameworks. We would need another session to go over them. But I think, Bobby, I don't know if you want to sell them a bit, or if there's anything you wanna add on those terms, because I'm finished. I just have one more image to pass, and that's it.
Okay, thanks, Ricardo. I suppose I'll just jump in real quick on the framework that's on the right-hand side, which is the plan and reflection framework put forward by Bob Muir, who works at Leeds Beckett University. This has been adopted by the English Football Association for the last few years in their coach development, certainly above level 2. So when you get into level 3 and level 4 qualifications, it's quite a prominent framework that they're advocating. Getting to grips with that has been, as Ricardo said, a very, very big influence on how I see coaching. And Ricardo mentioned before in his funnel the problem setting or problem solving, and it's I suppose in this framework, the responsibility of the coach to design practices that set problems and their coach behaviors more or less reducing the amount of problem solving that they do from the coach's side, and it gives the players that you can't see my mouse, but I'm pointing at the player engagement. It brings so much more engagement from the players, because they're not just trying to absorb information from the coach, they're actually engaging in the learning process much more in that sense. As Ricardo said, it would probably be a whole new webinar. We did touch on it slightly in the conversations with Derek and John Fletcher on Wednesday with our decision-making workshop. So that will be shared this weekend. We've just been editing some session plans, like we said that we would, to go out with that debrief email. But so that's about it, guys. So first of all, I want to say a huge thank you to Ricardo for putting this presentation together. I know how hard he's worked on that over the last couple of weeks when he was lumbered with the opportunity to present on the 4-2. It's been great listening for me, and I hope everyone else has enjoyed it. Of course, as Ricardo said, this is his way. It isn't the way. And with every defence, you offer something and you take something away. So probably something worth remembering. And well, what a quote to finish us off with, Ricardo, from Walt Disney: "The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing." So may I recommend that when you guys get back to work, if you're lucky enough to be getting on court soon, yeah, maybe start getting to grips with some of this stuff so that we can have a more comprehensive understanding of the defensive systems that are at our disposal. Guys, it's been great. Ricardo, anything else for you to say?
No, as I've left my contacts on the last underneath the quote. Obviously, I'm happy to discuss and to explore this and to learn from you a bit more, and mainly the ones, you know, from everyone. But I would be very keen on understanding the guys who reply that they use regularly the 4-2 system. What's their take on this model? If there's anything different. Because I need, you know, it's something that I want to explore further, and it's something that I want to learn from. Other than that, I would like to thank everyone for being here. Thank you for the interactions. Thank you, Tiago. I can see you there. And yeah, and guys, hopefully we'll be coming around in the next weeks. We have a few big sessions coming, and you'll join us. The first one being Wednesday. And the theme, you caught me, Bobby. Gonna put you on the spotlight.
Off the top of my head, I've got no idea, mate. I don't know the list.
We'll share it in a second.
Yeah.
But guys, thank you very much. And again, please use my email. There's my Twitter name there as well. If you can, if you wanna say something, just do so. And thank you very much. And stay safe, okay? Stay safe.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ricardo.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ricardo.
Obrigado.
Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Guys, have a great weekend and stay safe. We wish you all the best, and we hope to see you on the next one next Wednesday. Thank you very much, guys.
Obrigado.